What's up, guys? It is Sam here with J Flow. What's good, John?
What's up, Sam?
Today, I'm awesome. Today, we're going to talk about retirement and calculating your return, your amount needed in retirement, and also using the FIRE movement. And this is a much more realistic idea that's not just predicated on people in portfolio theory coming up with how much you're going to need in retirement. This is based on like much more real life information. So we're going to run through this with John. John, when did you start like really getting into saving, and when was your first investment?
Oh, I was 18.
Really?
I had saved up $10,000. I got my first job at McDonald's, and it was so stupid. But anyways, I had saved up a bunch of money. I was living at home. I was 16, and I think by the time I was 18, I had 10 grand saved up.
Wow.
And I typed into Google investing, and I think Charles Schwab came up. I had no idea what I was doing. Went in, met with somebody, and paid a front end load. I think it was like 5.5%.
Holy fuck!
Yeah.
Damn.
But I didn't know what I was doing. But that was my first investment. I think it was just some generic mutual fund.
Wow. And do you still hold that mutual fund?
Listen, I think I was 20.
And so did you just continue when you were saving? You just continued to put more and more money away?
Yeah, I had probably one bad year was when I was going to college. I had to spend a bunch of money on tuition and rent and stuff, and I wasn't working. But other than that, I've just been automatically saving every month for, I don't know, God, it's been more than 10 years now.
And how do you structure your do you have an emergency fund of several grand sitting aside in cash?
I like the advice of 6 months. I like to just take however much money I need. They say, I always hear the experts saying 3 to 6 months. I always go on the high end because who knows. And I keep that in the money market, and it just sits there, earns a little bit of interest.
Does it ever bother you that it's not earning you more money?
Oh, yeah, definitely. But it took me a while. I put most of my money in my main accounts, and I just slowly built up those cash annoying accounts that they tell you to have. But now that I got them, I don't think about them. I know they're there. If anything crazy happens, I know that money's there. So it's
Uh,
decent.
and in regards to those, do you also use them as a opportunistic to take advantage of opportunities when you see them in the market and like then replenish it?
Yeah, when I was a big Apple only investor, I pretty much leveraged everything I had into Apple. I took out all the cash I could get off my credit cards. I did all sorts of wacky stuff.
Holy
I was,
shit!
I think I had like 100 grand in Apple at one point, and I was, well, actually no, that's not right. It was more than that because I also had a margin account with Ameritrade.
Really?
At one point, it was something crazy. I don't. These are just speculating numbers, but I think it was close to like $200,000.
What happened? Why did you?
I paid a good amount of money. I don't remember how much it was, but it was maybe like 3 months, and then I realized what I was doing was stupid. I sold, took my money, and then put it all back. It was dangerous, but I was young. I was like, fuck it, let's just roll the dice.
Oh man, that's you had a very good role there because that's some dangerous or not dangerous. It's just
It was
you have to know what
so
you're doing.
easy people not to do. I did all the stupid things, and I could have lost my shirt, but thank God I did.
So what that brings us to now, like, what do you, if we're going to talk about retirement, and so I just have up here Nerd Wallet's calculator, and we're going to punch in some of the numbers for you. So we did that in a few minutes ago, but you had
So
mentioned your,
there's two different versions. This is sort of the standard boilerplate calculator that any retirement advisor is going to give you, and then this is comparing it to the FIRE movement, which is basically non-retirement accounts. This idea that you can move on to a better part of your career and really chase your real dreams instead of working forever.
yes, and you don't, and it's a lot lower than what people actually think in from my experience. Um, so if we go to the traditional calculator based on the information you put in, and actually before we jump into this, I want to, how is your portfolio currently split? Do you know roughly like what's included in there and what's your kind of breakdown in asset classes?
Um, all of my money is in mutual funds right now and cash. I have a lot of cash, but mostly mutual funds, and I would say it's probably 90% stocks, 10%.
Like too high of a percentage? Like do you have more than 5 to 10% in cash?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's probably around 15% cash right now.
Do you feel that you should lower that?
Session that's easily transferable back into the market because I don't do anything strange. I don't have any, individual stock positions I'm worrying about getting back into. As soon as I feel a little bit more comfortable with the earnings season, I'll probably be rolling that back into some mutual funds.
Some of that cash.
Yeah, it's a little bit high for my age. I'm only 33, and honestly, my investments being 90% stocks, 10% bonds, even that's a little bit too. It's not aggressive enough. I should really have 95 or 100% stocks. I have so much time to make up any losses that the bond investment is not really worth it. But that's what you get with a normal index fund.
Yeah, and that's where the vast majority of all of that is currently minus about 15%. Do you have any like alternative investments in there? I know we had talked
Well,
about
the weird thing that I'm doing right now, and that's doing pretty good. Last time I checked it, it was almost 3%.
what was it?
It's almost 3%.
Lending Club?
Yeah, it's getting up there. And I think the last time we talked, it was like 2.65.
And where are you standing with that? Can you make further investments or can you not?
No, still can't buy. Well, I can buy secondary notes, so I can buy ones that have been purchased by other people, but I've never done that, and that's a little bit out of my range of comfort.
Well, what data do you know what data they give you on that? Is it people selling because they're underperforming or is it people selling because they just need cash?
It's essentially just a swap sheet, I guess. Is the best way to put it. People, for any reason, they want to just get out. They go on a 3-year or 5-year note, and they just want their cash out.
How much of a discount is it?
Not paying, and then they just want to see if I can get some cash for it. Everybody else can take that chance, but it depends.
So that sounds interesting to me. How much of a discount?
I think it's pretty significant. I think they're probably 10 cents on the dollar, if I would have to guess.
No way, really?
I mean, distressed, already secondary notes. I don't see how anyone's gonna come in there and give you anywhere near what your value is.
So is it only distressed or is it just all secondary notes?
It's all secondary notes, but you can see all the information just like any other lending club transaction. So you can see their payment history, their credit score still, all the information you're gonna need.
Okay. But if you were to say get an A quality investment in a secondary market versus an A quality investment, no issues, 3 months in, and versus one who's just starting, what would be the discount on the secondary versus the primary?
That's a great question. I don't know. I've never actually looked at the prices.
That's I think probably a big opportunity for anybody who's don't do what we do, but I think I might do that. So to check out because if there's a substantial discount that's taken because like there's in a way a depreciation after it's purchased, right? Because the market isn't as strong in the secondary market as it is in the primary market, so you can get a big discount.
Yeah, and I think the real selling point for someone trying to get rid of it is diminished because I can just say I can buy a brand new one right now for the normal $25. Why am I going to give you a secondary at the same amount? It just there's no reason to. If you can get an A quality with no issues right from the primary market, that's a good secondary. So I don't think people are going to be getting anywhere near secondary. But if you want to go in there, I'm sure that's a good opportunity.
Because think about that, right? Like what you just said, I think a lot of people probably.
It has to be.
What's that?
It has to be a buyer's market because there's no real incentive for me to go in there unless they're really dropping the prices.
And when you think about it, if there's a 3 month brand new A quality, same exact twin of like somebody who's doing it now, the decision making is literally just fresh versus old, but you get a discount, so the credit quality is the same, and in a way is actually reduced because you know they're not going to default, or they haven't defaulted already in 3 payments. So like, I mean, you get a little bit more security, right? Because the loan amount's smaller, but you can potentially pick up an abnormally large return.
Right, right.
I think I'm going to do this, and I appreciate you enlightening me and anybody else who found this interesting too.
I think it's called Folio. I'm not sure. I've never actually opened an account.
I'm going to check it out probably after I close up on this next house or whatever. But anyways, okay, let's get back into this. So according to NerdWallet, you need approximately $1.8 million. How does that sound to you, John?
Honestly, it doesn't sound that scary. And usually, when I see these retirement things, I always go way higher than what they say that you need because right now I'm budgeting hard. I know what my expenses are. I'm living kind of brutal. When you're retired, you want to party, man. You want to go travel. You want to you obviously want to see your family. You got kids at that point, grandkids. You want to maybe buy a boat. There's a lot of expenses that they don't really talk about, and nobody wants to just live the same life, the Spartan life that you've been living, saving for retirement in retirement. So I think that those numbers are a little bit low.
Yeah. So, how would you feel to be able to retire on $45,000? I know we had already spoke earlier about this, but you currently spend around $32,000 a year. So, if you were to get like a 12 or 13,000, like say if you had another cash after taxes of $45,000, right? So a $15,000, $13,000 increase. Like what would think about that for a second? What would you do with another $13,000 a year, another $1,100 a month? Like what would you honestly do?
Most thing I think about with financial independence is freedom of time. What are you going to do during the week? So I'm working 40 hours plus now. When I'm 40, I want to work 20 hours plus. When I'm 50, I want to work 10 hours plus. And that other time is not just going to be sitting at home on the couch doing nothing. You're going to be out chasing other dreams, pursuing other investments, and I don't like the traditional version of retirement where you just have this nest egg and you're slowly whittling it down and getting poorer and more. I just don't like that. I want to increase and keep investing my whole life and get richer and richer and leave a bunch of money to someone when I die.
So, what if you were to take that $1,000 or slightly over $1,000 every month of additional income, assuming that you had a portfolio of 1.8, that would, if you use the 4% rule of thumb, which is based on the Trinity study, that you can, that's the safe withdrawal rate without touching principal balance, probably in perpetuity. So that 4% of 1.8 million is about 45 grand. So what I'm hearing from your conversation is more than likely you might inflate your lifestyle to maybe 33 or 34,000, but really you'd put another $10,000 back into growing that even bigger.
I think that's the part that a lot of people miss is that you don't want to be just this person depending on this magical thing in the sky that's keeping you alive. You're still going to have your vitality. The greatest wealth is health. You're going to be taking care of yourself. You're going to have other avenues to try to make yourself happy. You're still going to learn stuff. That's the best way to retire. That's the best way to live. You're still going to invest. You're still going to look for new fun things to do. And you want to grow your investments. You don't want to just sit on your cash hoard and watch it dwindle down. That's just so sad. I would never want to live like that.
Yes, and then because you just feel like you're not making progress, I feel like at that point.
Just give it up. You're just sitting home watching TV. Screw that. No way.
Yeah, I don't know if I could do that either. At least not at this moment in my life. So have you ever considered, right? How many hours a week are you working? 45-ish, maybe.
Yeah.
And then how long does it take to get to?
That's what I'm doing.
What's that?
Some weeks higher than that, but yeah, around 40, 45.
How long does it take you to get to work?
No, but I'm spoiled now. They're right by the highway. It's like 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Okay, so about 40 minutes per day.
Yeah, and then also they're sending me to school for my apprenticeship right now, so that's an extra. I would say probably 2 hours a week driving.
So maybe around like on average, probably closer to like for sure 45. because if you include some of these other things in that number, like the minimum's 45, right? The driving and the school. Now, if do you ever think about work outside of these times?
No, yeah. I mean, it, any of us working steps, you're thinking about it all.
So so as you talked about, do you think that like because you're thinking about it at times when outside of work that you're not actually free?
What you really want to go after, definitely. Yes.
Correct. So have you ever considered what you might want to do with 50 plus hours a week? And
Yes. I had lots of different business ideas and actually had a stupid charity idea a long time ago. Basically, just free financial advice, trying to train people how to get better. Do the stuff that we always talk about:
yep,
personal finance, investing, getting people on the right track.
yep. I have. What about doing something like that full time? Like, have you ever thought about doing something where you actually just do what you want to do? Like, if you want to have these conversations every day, we have these conversations every day. If you want to go meet interesting people and teach classes all day, you could do that. Have you ever thought about?
And that's, I think, what really is at the heart of the fire movement, and that's what I like about their ideals. Is it's not retirement. It's not okay. I don't have to work anymore. It's I get to go chase what I want to work on, the stuff that motivates me, the stuff that is interesting to me. That's really what's behind it. It's not just I pay my rent. I don't have to do anything.
But do you think that you would probably want to do that before 67?
Oh, definitely. I mean,
So have you ever considered?
I think you can spend a lot of time when you're 67. I think you can have a great decade in your 70s contributing and learning and stuff. But the biggest portion of your life is gone at that point. If you don't start early, which is what I was lucky enough to do, I had a good education and I had the opportunity to invest funds and reaping compound interest this long. But even if someone starts at 30, I mean, by the time you're 50, you can start reaping the rewards of this. You can do it every 20 years at that point.
So hopefully we'll continue to do this into the foreseeable future. For the next 20 years of having these conversations. But I basically just I knew
Well,
about it.
that's not to me when you're a billionaire, right?
Yeah. Well, it might change a little bit, but we'll,
Yeah.
we'll figure something out. I'll need somebody on my team, right? And you'll have to come work for me or whatever. But
Oh, I see how it is.
yeah.
All right.
So I completely forgot what I was gonna say.
Between these two,
So like if you went through and so for myself, I actually really didn't start investing a ton. Like I invested in very short periods of time, then take all the money out, right? And then invest and then take all the money out. So I didn't really start to like invest until about 2.5 years ago. So I'm 34 right now. So probably when I was like
I
31.
would say you did invest in your education.
100%. 100%.
What do you have now?
So I have an MBA. I don't know, but I think like the actual dollars. I didn't actually invest any dollars. I did spend a lot of time and money investing.
Your education is very valuable.
This is very true. And now this over this next decade is actually where I plan to start seeing some of those rewards because it takes time. It takes a lot of time, and um, I've always considered over the last couple of years is trying to think about those areas in my life that I want things that I want to do. Like I want to talk to interesting people all the fucking time, right? I want to constantly always be learning. I want to constantly be increasing the network of people that I know because I know that that's going to allow me to achieve anything that I want to achieve, whether that's an objective like cleaning up the oil spills or is making a fuckload of money or finding new real estate deals. Like I need the attention. So I want to get to fire, but in that process of getting to fire, I think is actually less about, and we have a number up here on the screen, but I think that it's way less about getting to that number than it is about creating the life that you want. Because if, if you can create the life you want, there's no, the journey's the fun part.
I think that 4% rule for a lot of people, they see it as this magic end point, the finish line, and that's not the finish line. It's where you start. It's this first goal you start working towards, and you start realizing, how am I spending my time? How am I investing my capital or whatever? And where do I feel most accomplished? Where do I feel passion in my life? And moving towards those things. And that's what you're talking about. You didn't want to keep, just sitting in a dead end job doing nothing. You want to talk to people. You want to travel, cleaning up oil spills, all this good stuff.
Whatever, right? And
Right.
and designing the lifestyle. So like, if you were like, well, on the weekends I would like to be in Florida. Like, okay, well, how big do you want to think? Do you want to be able to just fly down there every week? Or do you want to like fly first class? Do you want to have your own jet? Like, it depends on like how you want to think about it, right? Because you can do whatever you want to be able to do. And I think create
See you flying in a Tesla plane.
I do plan. I was thinking about buying a jet the other day and contemplating how big I need to think in order to make that the lifestyle that I.
Are you shopping? Did you have it in your shopping cart?
What's that?
Did you have the jet in your shopping cart?
No, but I
Dang,
think
you bastard.
I think I could probably. I know I could get a jet for a lot cheaper than I would think. Like probably only several million. Um,
Jets.org, where were you?
but think about the opportunity that would provide you, like a whole new group of people to be around and talk to, that probably think differently and have thought differently because they've potentially achieved a lot of things that you have not achieved because they have the money and resources to buy a fucking jet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, rich people are awesome, generally.
Yes. What we let's go. I'll lastly touch on these numbers here that we have for John. And so, John, you said you spend about $32,000 a year. So
Yeah,
what?
roughly that's the right number.
So you took your gross and you took your taxes out. So this includes like everything, like all your expenses for a car and all this stuff.
Yeah, I use a weekly budget, and those numbers that I have automatically coming out of my checking account into different savings and money market accounts. And so I think it's around $400 a week, and then 200. I also put away 200 for rent a week, and I think that's around 32,000 altogether.
Okay. Well, do you have a budget for your food? Uh,
Everything,
what's that?
everything.
So I have a
I can tell you every item I have on this budget.
what's your food budget?
$50 a week.
Mine's at 90.
You're a big boy.
But I also spend about I spend about 105 though.
But really, it's 100 because I put 50 into the food budget, and then there's 50 into my Visa. I just call it my Visa, but it's just my generic credit card. So I think I'm gonna have around $50 of ancillary spending a week. So it's probably more around 100.
Okay, that's what mine's at too. Because I include like other miscellaneous, like buying like toilet paper or like other shit in mine as well. Like,
Random stuff that you don't have on an absolute weekly basis.
yeah, exactly. And that to me is probably the all. I try to keep it under 90, but in all honesty, if you took it to the average per week for me in terms of that catch-all category, which food is like 85% of it, but then 15 to 10% is like variable, like laundry detergent, all that shit. But I also try to take. So I do that, and then I have my rent that I take out of mine, and then my electric. And then I also pay for oil in the house to heat up my place. So that's one of the reasons why I have a sweatshirt on. I don't mind wearing a sweatshirt, but it's not. I don't need to necessarily turn the heat up to 70 degrees. So most of the time,
Old man already. I love it. Don't touch that thermostat.
well, I just want to. I want to be putting myself in that place where I don't have to consider even the slight thought of putting the temperature exactly where I want to be and leaving the lights on all night if I so choose, and running the AC at 62 all summer because I want to. But I know that it requires me to make a lot of smart decisions now to put myself in that spot. So like that's why I do that. But I'm in the same neighborhood where I'm probably around 1,500 to 1,600 a month, and I think I can lower that. Um, so you're so 31.5 we have for you at the 4% rule. That's only, which the 4% rule is like a study out of I think it's a Trinity School in Texas, with a few different professors. They wanted to look at the safe withdrawal rate on a portfolio over a 25 or 30-year period, adjusted for inflation, and you could pull about 4% of the portfolio value without actually touching principal, based on just average returns.
Do you know if that was in a retirement account? Because I know that 4% rule, they have the RMDs, the required minimum distributions for retirement accounts. I never understood if this was the 4% in just a brokerage account or what they meant by this.
The portfolio value, but then you're probably going to have to get taxed potentially on certain portions of it, depending on where it's coming from. So if you're doing it on a net basis, like depending on, so if you'd like to level the shit up, yes, you'd have to understand how you're taxed on withdrawals from a retirement account versus a taxable account versus rental income, so that you could come up with a much more accurate number. But to basically retire on $31,000 a year, and basically you could take that 50 hours a week that you spend on things that may not be what you love in life, and do that for only $790,000. Is that?
It's a sweet deal, and I think that the way most people are going to end up doing it is just working part time, and then just taking that money and increasing that number.
If you had that in your portfolio now, would you consider going full time into doing something on the side that you knew would turn into money generating activity at some point, but it had to be what you love, or you wouldn't do it?
I think it would just, my personality, I would just get my toe in. I would start slow. I don't see myself just, quit it, I'm done working, let's do this.
John, I'm going to challenge you to start something. I'm going to challenge you to start something over the next year or 24 months, 36 months, because it's pretty amazing to get like a couple $100s a month from this. You know what I mean? Like, and to meet new people, which is something that I like, and I like learning, and people leave very insightful and thoughtful comments. So like,
where are you learning right now? You reading anything interesting?
I haven't in a little while. I've been so focused on doing that my actual productivity, I've seen a big increase in productivity, but I still feel that there's a big opportunity. So that if you think of like consuming on the one hand versus creating on the other hand, like having a balance, a lot of times the consuming is like 90% to 10% for most people, but I want it to be the opposite. So I've been working towards putting out, being more creative, whether that's instead of going to Instagram and consuming content, going to Instagram and reading some of the comments on posts to understand what is actually happening, what people are thinking, and then leaving thoughtful comments back so that I'm part of the community, because that's investing, right? Just like what we're talking about, we always want to be building. I want to be investing in people's attention, right? So I'm constantly trying to provide value.
That's a good strategy.
The long tail on this is going to be enough for me to live off of at some point. I don't know when, but the long tail, like I don't necessarily ever have to monetize. I can just continue to keep building, which is a crazy thing to think about, right? To just always like.
You touched on earlier, it's the journey, it's building it. That's the fun part.
Think about building something for the next 70 years, though. Like what you'd be able to accomplish.
You're gonna be like the coolest cyborg.
I think, but
Sam.
because the long tail on this is going to be plenty enough to like live off of. So if I can just keep building awareness in perpetuity, the long tail is going to get bigger and bigger and just present more and more opportunities. It's pretty insane when you think about it.
See, 70 years.
What what would be the one thing you would do over the next year to better, and you, this is on the spot, so take a second and maybe think about it, but what would you do if you could think about one thing that you would want to, that maybe provides a little bit of a headache for you potentially, but that you could change your life to get rid of it? So for me, just for example, so you can get an idea, I meal prep 4 days a week, 5 days, 3 days, depending on how many days at a time I do. Generally, it's about 4 days a week I'll be cooking, or 5 because of the weekend, right? So it's probably closer to 4 to 5 on average. And
Wait, the number of days that you cook for, or the number of days you're actually cooking?
cooking, I'm actually cooking. So at a minimum, we'll say that's 4 to 5 hours, but a lot of times it's a little bit longer because I generally only keep it to an hour if I'm like super focused. So paying somebody $15 an hour, to me, I'm making that mental switch.
I remember this plan. You're gonna hire someone to cook all your food for you, right?
I told you this a lot. I told you this years ago, and you're like, "This guy's a fucking clown." And dude, it's fucking 4 years later, 8 years later. I don't care. It's gonna happen.
Now you just want servants.
I want to be able to do what I want to be able to do, and I.
And well, it's I heard this once. I forget who it was, but they said, don't do ancillary tasks. If you're trying to be a CEO, if you're trying to be the top of your game, don't spend time washing dishes. Don't spend time doing laundry. Don't cut the grass. As soon as you realize that your time is valuable, however many dollar value you put that on, it's much worthwhile your time doing what you're best at and paying someone else to do the smaller important tasks. Like Bill Gates, the whole story about him stepping over $100 bill. It's more profitable than him reaching down to pick up the $100 bill.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think about it as in like that, but it's a weird mind fuck for me for a long time. You know what I mean? Because so I think if I'm actually consistent, if I don't have to do my own cooking and I can just buy the food, I honestly think I can probably get it to under $70, including the ancillary stuff that I buy, $70 a week, because I know there's a lot of waste in there in terms of like shit me buying that I don't really need. So if I got it there, then I could spend 2 hours, right, $15 and $15 to have somebody come over and cook for me, which would be 4 days worth of food. So that would save me a lot of time.
Yeah, free up to do other things, right?
To do other things, but I'm just waiting as the YouTube and everything grows so that can be the cash flow that actually pays for it. Because like even though I'm investing the psychology switch of like I'm paying $100.
Then you can make a video and like film the person cooking for you.
Oh, yo, I'm going to.
Money for paying them.
If anybody wants to come cook for me, I live in Massachusetts and I am willing to pay you $15 an hour. I will buy all the food. Reach out to me on Instagram. Link is in the description, or TikTok. All right, John. This has been an awesome conversation. I really wanted to take the time for a second here and appreciate the friendship we've had over the years, and the consistency in a perpetual journey of trying to figure out how to grow and constantly learn. And I really wanted to say that I appreciate that and value the relationship. Thank you for taking the time to come out here. And we will have more videos coming up soon, so make sure you press that subscribe button and that thumbs up button. Peace.